Compassion encircles the earth for all beings everywhere. Hello, everyone. I'm Phil Nicozisis, and welcome to the Traveling Vegan YouTube channel. I'm so excited that you're here to watch this show, this episode, and I'm especially excited because I'm here with two excellent people, Dr. Will Tuttle and Madeleine Tuttle of the World Peace Diet. It's not just a book, it's a brand, it's a movement, it's literally going to change the world. And I think that has been your mission since the very beginning of your vegan advocacy. I mean, you are both vegan activists, right?
Yeah.
And Madeleine, and where are you from originally, Madeleine?
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Yes.
And Dr. Will, where are you from?
Concord, Massachusetts.
And tell me how far back your veganism activism goes, and how it all came together, where you finally put together the World Peace Diet, which has been translated into, I think, is it 18 languages now?
Yeah, I think we're up to about 18 languages.
18 languages.
Yeah.
So if you can maybe take a step back for us and explain all that, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Phil. Thanks so much, Phil. It's awesome, actually, to be able to be part of this movement. It's a movement about loving kindness and respect and inclusivity, really, for all living beings, not just for human beings, but for animals, for ecosystems, for future generations. And the underlying idea in the World Peace Diet is to simply question the official narrative in our society. I went back, for me, to Concord, Massachusetts back in the 1950s, and eating usual meals of lots of meat, dairy products, and eggs. And I remember, fortunately, awakening out of that in college and realizing that there's something going on in our society. There's war and social injustice and environmental devastation. Even back in the 1970s, it was really becoming more critical that people question the way we're living. So right after college, I started traveling with my brother. We were meditating, we were questioning things. We ended up at a community for a while where people were vegetarians. I became a vegetarian. I never knew, actually, what goes on behind the curtain of our society. The fact that so many animals are killed, so many people get sick, so many forests are cut down, and it's all unnecessary. So I met all these people who were vegetarians at a community. It was an old hippie commune, actually, and that made a big change. I ended up eventually becoming a Zen Buddhist monk. Lived in Korea and found that this idea of veganism, which is really essentially living a life to minimize violence to other living beings, is actually an ancient wisdom tradition from Asia, but it goes back to Pythagoras in Greece. It's an ancient wisdom tradition that we've lost touch.
It's not a new age thing.
Yeah, it's not a new age. It's like an ancient thing. You know, and then I met Madeleine in Switzerland. A few years later, I got a PhD at Berkeley, taught college for a few years, met Madeleine in Switzerland. And you want me to tell you how I met
Sure.
Madeleine? Yeah, I mean,
Sure,
it's kind of
ahead.
an interesting story. You know, I play the piano too, and so I was traveling around. It was back when the Soviet Union was the enemy, the evil empire, and I was trying to create a little more peace with them and playing the piano and doing concerts. And then I went to Switzerland with my brother, traveling around Europe. And there was this little school that had a grand piano, and I remember going in the evenings and playing, and one day there was an art gallery opening there, and I played the piano for these people, and this woman walked up and said, "Whose music is that?" And so I said, "Oh, it's my own music, I write it myself." And she said, "Do you have a cassette?" And back in the day of cassettes, and I had one. And I gave it to her. Actually, she bought it. I sold it to her, and then came back to the States. And
Best dime she ever spent.
Yeah, right. Because when I get back to the States, she started to write to me and send money and order these cassettes and promote the music throughout music stores in Switzerland, because she found it was very heart touching for her. And then I sent a letter and said, I need an artist, because I want to make a CD. This was when CDs were first starting to come out. And she wrote back and said, well, she's an artist. And when she came over to do art, she came to the United States to do art, and I was living in a 1971 Volkswagen bus, traveling around doing concerts, and she moved into the Volkswagen bus with me. And we ended up getting a house, getting married, and we created a bunch of CDs together.
And that's the interesting thing. is it's not just the book and the ideas. What I love about the both of you is that you've basically been able to fully express, I'll call it the celebration of life, if you will, be not just with what you put on your plate, but also through the music and the art. And so, Madeleine, you are a artist in your own right. You do play the flute. Will plays the piano, and you actually have paintings that actually
Yes.
they adorn they grace the walls of my house, and I hope maybe that's a little bit of credibility to your talent. And they're always about these animals, and I think that's really special. Do you how did you come about to paint the animals?
Actually, when I started painting, I was painting more like landscapes and flowers and little creatures. And then when I came over and Will played the piano, I suddenly heard the animals. I heard like a lion and then a sheep or some kind of beautiful creatures. And I started to paint them, and that's when I switched, and my colors got much brighter. I was more into pastel before in my watercolors, and then it got so vibrant.
Will, do you think that that veganism helped you be more creative, gave you a clearer mind? We know from ancient people like Plato. Plato said that the vegan diet gave him a clearer mind and a better mood, and he actually, I think, said that he would have never been able to write. What did he write again? Plato.
The Republic.
Yeah, the Republic. Thank you. He would never been able to write the Republic if it wasn't for his vegan diet. So, how do you feel that has helped your musicality?
Actually, I think there's a huge connection between veganism, which is veganism isn't veganism. Veganism is a way of living based on loving kindness and respect for ourselves and for others. So I think for me, what I discovered when I started exploring veganism, it was like exploring a way of living that is in harmony with nature. And I started to feel more connected to nature. It really opened up doorways. What happened to me originally was in college, I was playing other people's music my whole life, but in college I started meditating. That's really started everything. I started doing yoga and meditating, and then I would sit at the piano. Instead of just reading music, I just started playing. And then the playing opened up a doorway to go deeper into my own consciousness. The music, music I think connects us to consciousness. And then through that, I ended up eventually going on this walk with my brother where we went all around the country. And that opened up a doorway to veganism because I met these vegan people. And then with veganism, I realized that connects us even more deeply with nature. Because if I'm going out into nature as someone who's stabbing and killing animals or eating them,
paying someone.
Paying people to do that, I'm eating suffering and despair and agony and so forth. And there's this basic sense of not being comfortable with myself and with animals. And so I found that through meditation and through veganism, the music started flowing even more. It was like the music became a vehicle for the earth and for nature and for animals to express the beauty and harmony that's all around us that we don't see. The beauty of the trees and the forests and the flowers and the lakes and the streams and the oceans and the beautiful birds. And so I started playing that way. And I think what I'm so grateful is that actually also opened up the doorway to meeting Madeleine, because when Madeleine came over and we got married, in that process she told me that as a little girl, when she was only 5 or 6 years old, she started to hear this melody. And then she looked everywhere in records to find that melody.
I had my own music
and then,
store.
And then eventually she even had her own music store. She with her first husband, they opened a music store in Basel. She sold music. She was listening to music all the time, but she could never find it. And then eventually I came over and I was playing the piano in that little art gallery opening, and that was it. She said, "That's the music I heard when I was 5 years old. Where'd it come from?" And that's why she came over and asked, "Whose music is that?" And I said,
in German.
In German,
I
yeah.
asked you.
Was ist los? And I said, and I told her. And so it was like this connection across lifetimes. I think music and meditation and veganism connect us to the transpersonal dimension of life, the dimension of life that goes beyond just this little material level where
transpersonal.
We have this, this my personal, like I want this and I don't want that, and I'm going to fight for you with this and try to, and I'll use those animals to get what I want. I'll use people to get what I want. It's to get beyond all of that and realize that what all of us are is an expression of love. What each one of us are is an expression of creativity, of beauty, of harmony, of sustainability, of joy. Essentially, I think our life is really an expression of joy.
You say these wonderful platitudes of wonderfulness, and I think I don't think there's anybody watching or many people out there. I think the man on the street would say that's great. But then us vegans, we go out into the real world, and one thing that I noticed is there's this idea of the witness, and crime and the witness, the perpetrator and the victim. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we need to be aware of. This is happening all the time, and whenever there's a crime committed publicly, for example, there's always these three roles that are enacted. There's the whoever's being robbed or attacked, a victim, and then there's the perpetrator who's doing it. But since it's a public event, there's somebody watching, a bystander or a witness or maybe several, and the perpetrator is always hoping that the bystander will just not say anything, just be quiet, go look the other way, pretend it's not happening. The victim is hoping that this witness will speak up and say, stop, I'll call the police, and help them. And so with veganism, we have a situation that's in a way pretty dismal in the sense that there are literally billions of victims. All the animals, the cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, fishes, all these animals are being slaughtered. And there's also billions of perpetrators. All the people that are taking out their wallets and paying for meat, dairy products, and eggs are causing these animals to be killed. There's only a few witnesses, that's vegans, who are actually not participating. We're watching this whole thing happen. And the victims are hoping that we will help, say something, but of course the perpetrators are hoping that we as bystanders or as witnesses will just not say anything, just look the other way, just kind of say, yeah, it's okay, no problem. But so I think it's very important for us as vegans to bear witness, but we have to do it in a way that's skillful. That's the key.
Yeah. But we don't. Or you wouldn't feel like you're not up on this pedestal or the soapbox saying, look at me, I'm vegan, and look how great I am. No. It's nothing like that. Although there is the tendency for that, or people maybe can come off that way. And people don't want to be questioned. People don't want to have their essence questioned, because, as you like to say, and what's a theme in this book is that these habits, these values have been inculcated into us at a very deep level at a very young age.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, people don't get up in the morning thinking, oh, I can't wait to kill a chicken when I go to, they just wake up wanting to live their life and do the best they can. But we've all been born into a system where we've been basically compelled, really without our permission, to eat in this way by very well-meaning people. So it's not about blaming or shaming or criticizing anyone. It's really about authentically presenting ourselves in the world as examples of the truth that we are, which is that we are not essentially violent, and we don't want to live our lives in a violent way. We want to live our lives in a compassionate and kind way. Yeah. I think with Madeleine and me too, the idea is to do this without criticizing people, but to do it by expressing beauty and joy and really, I think, a profound trust in human nature, that in our basic human nature is kindness. It's just we've been, unfortunately, conditioned to repress that.
What about people who say, well, lions eat other animals, and, humans, we're obviously powerful, we're smart, we can speak, and, that's just part of the hierarchy of life.
Right.
I get that a lot.
I love that. Some guy says, I didn't work my way to the top of the food chain just to eat some broccoli, like he personally worked his way to the top of the food chain all by himself, right? I mean, No, I mean, it's so funny. And the other thing is people think that because lions eat meat or because animals eat the flesh of other animals that we should be doing that, right? That somehow
But lions
we should
eat
do
their
that.
own children, I think.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, I mean,
Yeah, polar bears
animals
eat their
will-
youngs.
People have to realize, I think, that there's many behaviors that animals exhibit, and we don't copy them, right? I mean, like some males will eat the offspring. Some males will.
Or if I were to smell you in a certain way, that wouldn't be nice.
Right. I mean,
Or
there's
they
all
go
kinds of.
up into the trees and sleep there.
Yeah.
I mean, who
Right.
does that?
It's very romantic. Coyotes, very romantic. Like if the male goes out and catches some food and eats the food, then he'll go back and he'll vomit some of that food up for the for his wife, his partner, and we wouldn't find some guys doing that and saying, animals do it, so I'm going to do it too. And when we look at our physiology, we see that we don't have a psychology or a physiology of violence. We actually don't have that. We naturally are attracted to plant-based foods, and we can thrive on them. I've been a vegan for 40 years. We've been, and we thrive for decades, and we're not the only ones. There's millions of people like us. We're just as healthy, and I would say probably far healthier than the average person. Eating
I can
totally
take off my
plant-based.
shirt and flex for the camera. I mean,
Right.
there's no protein deficiency at this table. As a matter of fact, to my knowledge, there has never been one hospital case in the United States somebody checked into the hospital with a protein deficiency. Now,
Yeah.
if hopefully I get 1 million views on this channel, and there'll be somebody out there who's going to find a hospital registration of a person that had or has a protein deficiency, but that would be, I think, the only
No,
one.
it's so rare. It's a disease.
Yeah.
It's called kwashiorkor. I mean, it's basically when people are literally starving to death in certain parts of the world, but it's not. It's because they're not getting enough food. So, essentially, most of the hospitals are filled up with people who are there because they're eating too much protein. Really, I mean, very concentrated doses of protein.
Well, our
But-
friend Brian Clement at Hippocrates Health Institute will say, when everybody says one thing, look at the opposite, and that's usually the case. So
Yeah.
people are in the hospital because of too much protein, and what does the food industry, what do all the cheerleaders selling these products tell us to do? Is to eat more protein too, obviously to sell more of their products.
Right.
But that's cheerleaderism, not science.
Right. No, and I know, like when I was a Zen monk in Korea back in the 1980s, before the Western food really came into Korea, I was there for many, many months, and I never saw a fat person. I mean, virtually never. They were eating rice and vegetables, and they were not getting overweight. And now that Kentucky Fried Chicken, Burger King, McDonald's have come in, we see all these heavy people. So I think we have to realize that the traditional diets, very often of people that were based on grains and vegetables, were very healthful. And you know that, we've traveled, and
Yeah.
We're going to get to that.
people,
yeah.
people have to understand that we've been blessed to travel to over 50 countries in the world to share this message, all 50 states, to bring the vegan message. And we found when we go to Africa or to Asia, to other places, that people who are eating traditional diets are actually much healthier than Americans are, or people in Western Europe who are eating diets with a lot of meat, dairy products, and eggs,
right.
saturated fat, cholesterol, acidifying, inflammatory animal protein. I mean, all this stuff is really hard
Well,
on our
did you ever
bodies.
say that like 5 times in a row? Are you able to do that?
I
would
could do that. I know,
it's speaking of travel, people may not know, but the three of us have traveled. I counted. It's 13 countries. We did 3 different world tours in 13 different countries altogether. We did India. We did all through Asia. We did 8 countries in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was really fantastic to share the vegan message. And I would just want to say one thing. If people ask me, what's it like to travel with the Tuttles? Because you guys are, you're basically, you're famous. You're the rock stars of the vegan movement. And so I want to play a video right now that I filmed in the airport when we were going through India. And if you can roll the tape right now, people ask me, what's it like to travel with the Tuttles? Well, this is what it's like to travel with the Tuttles. Roll the tape.
Hey, are you from California or something?
Yeah, from the beach. Hawaii.
So as you can tell, it's a wonderful thing to travel with you guys. I mean,
Dancing through life.
dancing through life. It's, for example, India. We were there for for 12 days. We traveled through 10 cities and did about 15 events, and including radio spots and concerts with hundreds of people there. I think the one show that we went to was 800 or 900 people. And so, what's it like when you meet different people? I mean, you made so many. I mean, I know with you, I've made so many countless connections around the world, and you must feel really grateful for having met so many people that then they keep in touch, right?
Yeah.
You're right. It's really inspiring, you know, to see. There's so many. It's like this family almost of kindred spirits who have in their hearts the same values, the values of compassion and kindness and respect for others, and a willingness to not just think about it or to be angry that there's so much suffering, to actually get up and do something to make a positive change, like you're doing, you know, right now, with this channel, to actually articulate another way of living and to share that and to host us when we come through and to set up events, to make sure there's a grand piano on the stage, to make sure there's a place for the paintings.
We had a nice event last night at Plant Forward at the Grandview Market in West Palm Beach.
Right here.
A wonderful place.
And that was the first public event that we've done in a long time, and it felt really good to get back in. And even though it was 30 people or so, it wasn't the biggest event we've ever had, but just that human connection and the inspiration that everybody gets by sharing a message that, essentially the vegan message, and then we get to eat incredible whole food, plant-based diet food of a high cuisine level with Chef Alex.
Organic.
In this case, was incredible.
Right.
So I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for writing this book, which is it 12 years now, 11 years? I think
12 years.
The World Peace Diet is actually, this is my favorite. Actually, in the security questions with the internet, they ask you like your favorite book or your mom's maiden name. Well, World Peace Diet. If anybody wants to do an identity theft of me, favorite book, World Peace Diet. And so thank you for being on the show, and safe travels as you travel throughout the country in Florida, even in these challenging times. And I hope you'll enjoy the next episode that we will film, upcoming episode, where Dr. Will Tuttle will give us his signature lecture, The Main Ideas in the World Peace Diet. Will and Madeleine, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been so great.
Phil.
Thanks so much, Phil. Thanks everyone for watching, and go forth and multiply. Thank you.
Thank you.